The debate between whether or not nurse practitioners should be able to bill equivalent fees for service as their physician counterparts is a complicated one with valid arguments on both sides. I have no argument against the fact that nurse practitioners are likely underpaid and underutilized in the Canadian healthcare system as a whole. So I think it's important to remember going into this debate that I'm not debating whether or not NPs get paid enough, but rather that they shouldn't be able to bill the equivalent fees for service as physicians. And I have three primary reasons for this. The first is that nurse practitioners, while the roles are similar to that of physicians, they aren't equivalent. And their primary differences are in scopes of practice as well as education requirements. So it's difficult to nail down an exact number because the scope of practice of NPs differs so widely across Canada. But we estimate that nurse practitioners hold about 90% of the same scope as a general practitioner physician. So that number alone tells us that physicians and nurse practitioners are not the same. In terms of education requirements, it's now a practice standard that nurse practitioners in Canada have 6 years of post-secondary education in addition to a couple of years experience as a registered nurse. But that standard is fairly recent, and as recent as 2010, we know that statistically in Canada, just over a third of practicing nurse practitioners actually met that education standard. Versus physicians, general practitioners generally have a minimum of 9 years of post-secondary education before they're out working in the field. So big discrepancies in the education between the two. My second argument is that allowing nurse practitioners to bill equivalent fees for service as physicians actually has the potential to encroach on that physician role. So there are certainly gray areas of crossover between the two professions. As I said, 90% of the scope might be the same or very similar, but it's important to maintain a differentiation between the two. So the nurse practitioner profession in Canada actually stemmed out of a need for more primary care providers, and we didn't have the physician numbers to meet that need. But the closer we get to making the two professions equivalent, such as through equivalent payment models, the blurrier those lines become, and we actually have potential that we would lose some of that physician role in the country, and then lose the importance of that extra 10% of their scope that they're providing as well. And my third argument is that our current physician fee for service payment model is unsustainable. And by moving to this model, it would risk some of the current benefits of the NP profession. So Canadians love their NPs, and much of the appreciation for the profession stems from their ability to help sustain the publicly funded healthcare system and provide quality healthcare, which are two highly criticized things about fee-for-service payment models. So I challenge you to think, if anything, we should be considering how moving physicians to a salary model, like most NPs, would provide more sustainable healthcare spending and improve quality health outcomes for Canadians versus moving physicians to an equivalent fee-for-service model as physicians. Thanks.